Good morning, everyone, or afternoon, because we're going to put this on YouTube. But I have the honor of getting to interview Bill Zachry, who was the 2020 Comp Laude David J. Depaolo Award winner. Hey, Bill.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you.
Good. Before we go into the interview questions, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? I'm sure everybody knows you, but just in case.
All righty. Thank you. Well, actually, as many of you know, my introduction to workers' compensation was as an injured worker. I was a playground director in Daly City. I got stabbed at work, was in the hospital for a week, and they took out my spleen. And the state fund actually handled my claim, which is ironic because now I'm on the board of the state fund. So I think I'm the only board member that actually started out as an injured worker being handled by the state fund. And over my career, I was the vice president of claims at several insurance companies. I worked my last job in full time anyway was the Sedgwick Institute, where I did research and writing on risk management issues. Before that, I was the risk manager at Safeway/Albertsons for 15 years. At Safeway, I got the Risk Manager of the Year award from RIMS. I was very graciously given the CCWC Tim East Award for Workers' Comp Professional in 2016, and I think, as recently said by several people, one of the highest honors that you could possibly get in the industry is the David Depaolo Summa Comp Laude Award from WorkCompCentral. And so thank you very much for that. Little comment I'd like to make is I knew David pretty well and met him at many of the industry events. David was focused on looking for the positive in the world. And the problem with workers' compensation is you're dealing with people who've been injured. It can be quite negative. People are in pain. It's costing employers money. And so pulling positive out of a very negative potential situation is, I think, highly unusual. And David was unique in doing that. Really great guy. And tragically left us way before he should have, frankly. And so it is an extraordinary honor to be given this award. And I personally feel that it's important to try to live up to the standards that he set with regards to looking at the best, trying to be positive, make the world a better place, because there's so many things that can be done.
Yes, I agree with that, and that's what we strive to do, especially with this event, and bringing everybody together to even the table and have a discussion. Is about change and bringing that positivity forward and highlighting it when it needs to kind of be forefront, because every day we put out what's going on in the industry and it's not highlighted. So hopefully that this event will continue on with that. So thank you. And thank you for being helping that, because you are a Comp Laude Advisory Board member as well. And I know you're very active in helping us push that mission forward. So thank you for that. So let's dive into the questions here. And let's go back to the beginning. What does it mean to have been nominated and then go through the finalist round? Like how?
The nomination process was, I frankly didn't expect to be nominated. My focus was not to try to get an award, but my focus has always been, what can we do to make the system a little better, reduce the cost for the employers, improve the quality and the benefit of for the injured workers, and make the whole program work. And so it was somewhat of a surprise, if you will, when I was told that by several people that they wanted to nominate me, and it's humbling, frankly, in terms of, if people think that you've done enough when you personally don't think you've done enough yet to make the system really what it can be. And so there's a long ways to go in my mind, and yet here we are. And so it was humbling. It was really quite an impressive process. I think one of the things that I particularly liked is on the other side of the fence, I was one who helped vet or review several of the candidates. And one of the highlights of last year was calling these people and talking to them about what they had done and how they had done it. And the senior judge in Tennessee was extraordinary in terms of what he's done and how he's done it. And the discussions we had on how he creates quality control, what he does was phenomenal. We had an amazing quad injured worker who is also now a coach for women's track and field, doing helping the local college with regards to the pole vaulting and other events. These people you meet and getting to know the life stories and what other people have done, for me, was really personally the real highlight of being involved in the process, if you will. And I'm really, really appreciative of the fact that I got to meet some really, really neat people and see what they were doing to make the world a better place, and get a larger perspective on how things work and what happens.
I agree. This was my first year doing betting as well. And some of the discussions I had, it brings you back to reality. And then it also helps in, putting all the event together. I usually just make sure the stages are happening. And so then I get to see the outcome, but get reminding of why. This was a really good year for me to be brought back to the why and having the discussions with the individuals. So
well, I think that's absolutely true. And quite frankly, I think the focus that the WorkCompCentral has had on the injured workers, for me, a lot of the highlight over the years has been the work comp panels, the injured worker panels, and talk about what their life was like and how the injury affected them and how they're dealing with it now, were some of the best educational panels I've ever been privileged to watch, because once you begin to see the challenges that some of these people have, your perspective on the world changes.
Right, exactly. What was your reaction when you won?
Again, I thought that, there were many people who were highly qualified and were worthy. And so I was actually very surprised when I was awarded this. It's again humbling in terms of the I feel like, what's that movie where the people are going, I'm not worthy kind of thing, and that's how I sort of feel at times about this process, if you will, in terms of there's so much that can yet be done and so much that's important. And actually that leads to the next sort of question, if you will, and that is going forward, how can I continue or improve in terms of what I'm doing? And the answer to that, frankly, is the fact that I'm working with several physicians right now on a series of papers where we're working on what I call tools in the toolbox that are not currently being used.
Okay.
And so the workers' comp system tends to isolate the industrial injury from the rest of the person. Mm-hmm. And yet it's a whole person that's injured. And so an example of tools in the toolbox where things are not really happening, one example is that a lot of people use their faith to recover from industrial accidents, but we don't encourage the use of faith. And I'm not saying we should make them change their faith or anything, but we should encourage them to use that faith in their recovery. Becky Curtis, who is one of the prior awards, and I have been writing a paper on how and why it's important for us to encourage claims examiners to to recognize that some people have faith and that they should use that to recover from industrial accidents. Another issue that is a common issue with regards to recovery is the fact that because of the pain, a lot of people don't get quality sleep. And so I'm working with Dr. Feinberg, who was nominated on a paper for encouraging the claims community to give out some pamphlets on here's how you can get quality sleep. Here's some good steps that you can take. Here are things you can do, because a lot of times the medication that people take will interrupt sleep, or the pain will interrupt the sleep. And yet sleep is important for recovery, kind of thing. And so there are many what we call tools in the toolbox that I think are an opportunity for us to use on the whole person to help them recover, get back to work, etc. And we're not necessarily doing that as well as we can. And I think that trying to get these papers out and encourage people to do that will be good for the community, good for the injured workers.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to hearing about that. So make sure you have me on that, because I want to learn more and figure out how we can help with that. So
thank you. I think having the WorkCompCentral platform in terms of getting the word out is, I think, an important piece of the puzzle. And so I highly value my relationship with you and the organization so that we can perhaps continue to encourage good behavior and good results for the injured workers. The funny thing is, the one thing I like about comp, one of the many things I like about comp, is the fact that if you do the right thing for the injured worker, it actually significantly reduces your workers' comp expense for the employers, and yet also improves the outcomes for the injured workers. It's a win-win situation when you can do it well.
Mm-hmm. And that was one of David's biggest things. Sometimes we had too many tools, but that was his thing, is giving a place for any person to do their job well and efficiently. And at the end, the injured worker, because the person understands the system and can do their job efficiently, as well as the client or person, anybody can do their job efficiently, which means then, and if they have all the tools that are needed. So
absolutely. And I'm going to get a little bit into the weeds, but I can't help myself. It's like that from the Bug's Life where they say, don't look at the blue light, and Harry says, I can't help myself kind of routine. And so for me, the important piece of a lot of what happens is the fact that frankly, I didn't appreciate the importance of return to work until much later in my career. And the more I look into it, the more I realize that the primary focus for all parties should be getting the employee back to work as quickly as possible. Light modified duties, whatever it takes to do this kind of routine is very, very important. And yet the system is rife with financial incentives that create resistance. And then more importantly, the system is rife with barriers to good communication. And these barriers to communication are really problematic, if you will, with regards to encouraging return to work. I have a quick work story on that I find hilarious and yet apocryphal for how the problem is. And so the story was, and this is a true story, this guy named Jack comes into the medical clinic and he has a bad back. He has this back strain, and he's wearing jeans and a rough t-shirt and work boots that are pretty dirty. And they say, what is your occupation? He says, well, I'm a cement mixer. And he has a bad back, so they give him 2 weeks off, and he comes back. His back is still bothering him somewhat, and this guy is apparently like 6'7". He's 250. He's a big guy, right? And he's got a back problem, and they say, how's the back doing? And he goes, it's a little better, but it still hurts. And so they give him another 2 weeks, and the employer calls and said, why is he not back at work? And they said, well, he has a back strain and he's a cement mixer. There's a long pause, and he says, he mixes amalgam for dental fillings. And so we returned to work that day. The point is that there's a lot of miscommunication everywhere, and there are opportunities to overcome this lack of communication or miscommunication, which will help get the people back to work. And failure to return to work is a catastrophic economic event for the injured worker. Failure to return to work can reduce life expectancy of the injured worker. And so you have to make sure that the priority is there and that you drive it hard.
Yeah. And communication, I know the biggest thing was words matter, but it does, communication both ways to probably always, to anybody that's involved in the case.
I've been talking with a lot of treating physicians and consulting physicians lately in the last few months, and the continued complaint they have is the lack of questions or information that comes from the claims administration side, the lack of clear direction in terms of return to work, the lack of information about what the employee does at work, are all problematic. And so, the communication problem is all over the place in terms of what it can do, and there are opportunities to solve that. So it's an important piece of the puzzle.
Right. So back to the the main questions, but would you like to thank anyone?
Well, first of all, thank you and Yvonne for running the program so well. It was extraordinarily well done. I think Don Watkins was one of the people who wrote up the initial application, if you will. And one of the most, humbling and gracious things is some of the people, after they wrote letters of support, shared some of those letters of support. And it was actually sort of surprising to me that some of the people saw some of the things I'd been doing that I had not really talked about very much. But there are a lot of people out there who need support, particularly in the last year. And I have a group of folks who I call regularly just to make sure they're all right, make sure that that they're getting the food they need, that they're getting the care that they need, et cetera, and so forth. And I didn't think that was known very well, but apparently it showed up on some of the letters of support and things. So it was, I think Doug Benner and Tom Ashton and Suzanne Guyon and a whole bunch of other people wrote some really amazing letters, which again become extraordinarily humbling when you start reading and you say, well, I did that. Wow. And it was pretty neat, and so thank you to all the people who not only did the really good write-up originally, but then followed up with letters of support, etc.
Aw, of course. And what if, for anybody that's listening, what is a message or takeaway you want to leave them and for the industry?
One of the most interesting pieces of the puzzle for me is the fact how important one person can be with regards to impacting some other people. And one of my best examples, for instance, is another award winner. Alex Swedlow from the CWCI is very self-effacing and very humble in his own right. But my understanding of the comp system in the United States is he was the first one to raise his hand and say, hey, we've got a problem with regards to opioids, particularly opioids being dispensed to children under 18 years of age who get injured on the job. And he, in his effort to stop the opioid pandemic, if you will, in the work comp system, I know saved many, many lives, and yet he doesn't acknowledge it, and he will never know how many lives he saved, but his actions were extraordinarily important in saving lives. And it wasn't just his actions, though, because his team worked so hard to create the data to show where the problems were, then combined with the efforts that came out of the WCRI, it all built up to a point where you could I can directly say that I believe that Alex, his team, and then the WCRI saved a lot of lives. And so my point, circuitous point, albeit, but my point is that individual people make a difference. And if you're a claims adjuster, if you're a claims supervisor, if you're an employer, you can make a difference in somebody's life. And so you have to make sure that you take the extra step to find out what the barriers are for return to work, find out what are the true needs of this person so that you can meet them, find out what you can do for these individuals so that they can successfully get back to work and get on with their lives. And the individual success that people do in the comp system is so important in terms of what they do for other people. And this is a really, really nice industry in terms of you have an opportunity to make somebody else's life better. The question is just how do you go about doing it? And the important piece, to build on that a little bit, is you need employers that will empower the people to do that. And one of the things that I always was fortunate enough to be able to take that extra step to do the right thing in almost everywhere I've been. And so by being empowered to do that, I feel that we as an industry need to make sure that we continue to encourage that on everybody's part.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. Again, we can't do what we do without you. From Comp Laude, WorkCompCentral, the industry, I know that you do everything that you can to do what we can for the injured worker, as well as cost containment for the employers, and making, the system with who the two, David believed the two people that the work comp system was created for, which was the employer and the injured worker. I know we all, have our parts to play as well, but that's what we tend to forget, that that's what the system was created for. And I know that that's what, when he was really starting to get Comp Laude to where it needed to be, that was his vision and mission with it.
So I have one other thing I'd like to say, and that is just that the nomination process is open for the next year.
Yes.
And being positive and taking great care of the injured workers is one piece of the puzzle. Positively identifying people who are doing that and encouraging that behavior is another piece, and this is part of that. And so if you're out there and you have a supervisor who's great, or you have a claims examiner who's great, or you have a defense counsel or a treating doctor, or if you're an injured worker, or you know of an injured worker, or you know of a applicant's attorney or anybody else in the industries who's out there and is doing a great job, I think it's very, very important that you take the time and energy and please make a nomination so that that good point can be recognized through this process.
Agreed. That's why you are on the advisory board. You keep me in line, make sure I'm doing what I need to. So again, thank you so much. And I'm sure we'll be seeing more of you, obviously, and looking forward to see what we do in 2021. And hopefully we'll be back to being live in 2021.
Well, I'm looking forward to that. It'll be fun.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.